The dust hadn't settled on her father's grave when Marcus Thornhill arrived at the ranch with a contract that would seal Catherine's fate forever. Catherine Morgan stood on the porch of her family's weathered ranch house in northern Texas, her dark hair whipping in the October wind of 1882, watching the portly banker from San Antonio climb down from his carriage. Her father had been dead only 3 days, and already the vultures were circling. Behind Thornhill came another man on horseback, tall and broad-shouldered, with a black hat pulled low over his eyes. This second man had a cruel set to his jaw, and when he smiled at her, Catherine felt ice water run through her veins. "Miss Morgan," Thornhill said, removing his hat with false politeness, "may we come inside? We have matters of great importance to discuss regarding your late father's debts." Catherine's younger brother Thomas, only 16 and still raw with grief, stood behind her. "My father owed no debts," she said firmly, though her hands trembled at her sides. "This ranch is ours, free and clear." "I am afraid that is not entirely accurate," Thornhill said, pulling papers from his leather satchel. "Your father borrowed extensively against this property over the past 2 years. The drought damaged his herd significantly, and he needed capital to keep the ranch operational." The other man dismounted, his spurs jingling as he walked up the porch steps uninvited. He was perhaps 40 years old, with gray streaking his dark hair and eyes like chips of flint. "Name is Silas Garrett," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "I own the Triple G Ranch, biggest spread in 3 counties. Your daddy and I had an arrangement." "What arrangement?" Catherine demanded, backing toward the door. Thornhill cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Your father owed Mr. Garrett $12,000 secured against this property. However, Mr. Garrett has graciously agreed to forgive the entire debt in exchange for your hand in marriage, Miss Morgan." The words hit Catherine like a physical blow. "That is impossible. My father would never have agreed to such a thing." "Your father was desperate," Garrett said, stepping closer. His breath smelled of whiskey and tobacco. "He came to me 6 months ago begging for money to save this place. I told him I would give him what he needed if he promised you to me. He signed the papers himself." "You are lying," Thomas shouted, but his voice cracked with uncertainty. Thornhill produced another document, and Catherine's heart sank as she recognized her father's signature at the bottom. The paper outlined exactly what Garrett had said. Her father, in his desperation to save the ranch that had been in their family for 2 generations, had promised his daughter to a man known throughout the territory for his brutality toward women and his ruthless business practices. "The wedding will take place in 2 weeks, Garrett said, his eyes traveling over Catherine in a way that made her skin crawl. "You will come to live at my ranch. Your brother can stay here and work the land, but the deed will transfer to me once we are married." "And if I refuse?" Catherine asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then I will foreclose immediately," Garrett said with a cold smile. "Your brother will be homeless, and this ranch will be sold at auction. I will buy it anyway, and you will have nothing. At least this way, your family keeps the land." After they left, Catherine stood in her father's study, staring at the contract with tears streaming down her face. Thomas paced behind her, his young face twisted with helpless rage. "There has to be another way," he said. "We can borrow money from someone else. Pay off the debt." "With what collateral?" Catherine asked bitterly. "The ranch is already mortgaged to Garrett. No bank will lend to us now." She touched her father's desk, remembering how he had sat here just weeks ago looking so tired and worn. He must have been carrying this terrible secret, knowing what he had done to save their home. The next morning, Catherine rode into the nearby town of Redemption, a small but growing community that serviced the surrounding ranches. She needed supplies, and more than that, she needed to think. The general store was busy, and as she waited for her order, she heard 2 ranch hands talking about a cattle buyer who had just arrived from Montana. "They say he has money to burn," one man said. "Looking to buy up land and start his own operation down here. Paid cash for the old Henderson place, 3,000 acres, just like that." Catherine's ears perked up. A man with money, looking for land. An idea began to form, desperate and wild, but it was the only chance she could see. "Who is this buyer?" she asked the men. They turned, and one of them smiled. "Name is Cole Winters. He is staying at the boarding house, I believe. Came down from Montana Territory with a herd of horses and a reputation for fair dealing." Catherine found the boarding house easily enough. Mrs. Patterson, the owner, directed her to the dining room where a man sat alone, eating breakfast and reading a newspaper. He was younger than Catherine expected, perhaps 27 or 28, with sandy brown hair and eyes the color of summer sky. He wore clean clothes, not fancy but well made. His hands, wrapped around his coffee cup, were calloused and strong, the hands of a man who worked for his living. "Mr. Winters?" she asked, her heart pounding. He looked up, and his eyes widened slightly at the sight of her. Catherine knew she looked presentable in her dark blue dress, her hair pinned up properly, but she also knew her eyes were red from crying and her face was pale with stress. "Yes, ma'am," he said, standing immediately with the courtesy of a man raised right. "How can I help you?" "I need to speak with you privately, Siemens," Catherine said. "It is a business matter." Cole gestured to the chair across from him, and once she was seated, he dismissed Mrs. Patterson with a polite nod. "What kind of business?" Catherine took a deep breath. "I understand you are looking to purchase land in this area. I have a proposition for you, though I warn you it is unusual." "I am listening," Cole said, leaning back in his chair. His gaze was direct but not unkind. "My father died 3 days ago and left a debt of $12,000 secured against our ranch. The man who holds the debt, Silas Garrett, has agreed to forgive it only if I marry him in 2 weeks. She saw Cole's jaw tighten, but she pressed on. "Garrett owns 20,000 acres adjoining our property. If you were to purchase his land, he would have the money to release his claim on our ranch and on me." "How much land do you have?" Cole asked. 2,000 acres, good grazing land with water rights to Redemption Creek?" Cole studied her for a long moment. "Why would Garrett sell his land? From what I hear, he is the richest rancher in the county." "Because he wants more," Catherine said. "Men like Garrett always want more. If you offered him enough money, enough to expand his empire somewhere else, he might take it. At the very least, it would give me options." "And what would be in this for you?" Cole asked. "If I buy Garrett's land, your debt is still owed." Catherine had thought about this all night. "If you purchase Garrett's land and pay off my father's debt, I will sell you our ranch for $1 and sign over the deed immediately. You would own nearly 23,000 acres of prime Texas rangeland. But you and your brother would be homeless, Cole pointed out. "I would ask only that you allow us to stay on as employees. Thomas is a hard worker, and I can cook, keep house, manage accounts. We would earn our keep." Cole was quiet for a long time, his finger tracing the rim of his coffee cup. Catherine watched him, trying to read his expression. He had a good face, she thought, honest and open. There were lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, and his mouth was firm but not cruel. "Why did you come to me?" he finally asked. "You do not know me. I could be as bad as Garrett, for all you know." "I asked about you," Catherine admitted. "People say you are fair and honest, and I am desperate, Mr. Winters. In 2 weeks, I will belong to a man who beats his horses and buried 2 wives already. I will take any chance to avoid that fate." Cole's expression darkened. 2 wives? The first died in childbirth, though there are those who say she was too injured to survive it. The second fell down the stairs and broke her neck, or so Garrett claimed. No one could prove otherwise. Catherine's voice shook slightly. "I do not intend to be the third." "No," Cole said firmly. "You will not be." He stood up, and Catherine rose with him. "I will ride out to Garrett's ranch today and make him an offer. I cannot promise he will take it, but I will try." "Why would you help me?" Catherine asked. "As you gain nothing from this except an expensive fight with a powerful man." Cole looked at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. "Let us just say I do not like seeing people trapped," he said quietly. "I will do what I can, Miss Morgan. Over the next 3 days, Catherine heard nothing from Cole Winters, and her anxiety grew with each passing hour. She tried to keep busy, working alongside Thomas to repair fences and tend their small remaining herd, but her mind was always elsewhere. At night she lay awake, imagining herself trapped in Garrett's house, subject to his whims and his cruelty. On the 4th day, Cole rode up to the ranch. Catherine ran out to meet him, her heart in her throat. What happened? Garrett refused to sell, Cole said, dismounting. He looked tired and frustrated. I offered him $25,000 for his land, well above its value. He laughed in my face and said no amount of money would make him give up what was his. Cole's jaw clenched. He meant you. Catherine felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Then I am lost. Not yet, Cole said. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a thick envelope. I did some investigating. Garrett's ranch may be large, but it is not all contiguous. He has been buying up small parcels for years, creating a patchwork of ownership. There are 3 key properties that, if someone else owned them, would cut his land into sections and make it much less valuable. He spread a hand-drawn map on the porch railing. These properties total about 5,000 acres. I spent the last 3 days tracking down the owners. 2 of them are elderly brothers who want to retire to San Antonio. The third is a widow who cannot manage her land alone. I have purchased all 3 properties for a total of $15,000. Catherine stared at the map, understanding dawning. You have divided his ranch. More than that, Cole said with a grim smile. One of these parcels controls the main access road to his property. Another holds the primary water source for his southern pastures. The third blocks his access to the railhead in Redemption. Without these pieces, Garrett's operation becomes much more difficult and much less profitable. He will be furious, Catherine whispered. Yes, he will, Cole agreed, and when he comes to me, as he will, I will offer to sell him back these parcels for $20,000 and the cancellation of your father's debt, including the marriage contract. It was brilliant and dangerous. What if he simply tries to drive you out or kill you? Cole's expression hardened. I have dealt with men like Garrett before up in Montana. I know how to handle myself. But you are right that he might try violence. That is why I want you and your brother to come stay in town until this is settled. Mrs. Patterson has rooms available. This is our home, Catherine protested. We cannot simply abandon it. You can if it keeps you safe, Cole said firmly. Please, Miss Morgan, let me do this without worrying about you being out here alone where Garrett can reach you. The concern in his voice, the genuine care, touched something deep inside Catherine. This man who had known her for less than a week was putting himself in danger for her. Why are you doing all this? She asked softly. You could have walked away. You could have bought land anywhere else without this trouble. Cole looked at her for a long moment, and the autumn sunlight caught the gold in his hair. The first time I saw you in that boarding house, I thought you were the bravest woman I had ever met. You walked in there with your back straight and your head high, even though you were terrified. You were not asking for charity or rescue. You were fighting for your life the only way you knew how. He stepped closer. I have spent years building up my stake, working from nothing to something. I know what it is like to be trapped by circumstances you did not create. If I can help you, and it costs me nothing but money, then it is worth it. Catherine felt warmth spread through her chest. It could cost you much more than money. Some things are worth the risk, Cole said simply. That afternoon, Catherine and Thomas moved into Mrs. Patterson's boarding house. Cole took up residence in the room next to theirs, and Catherine found comfort in knowing he was close. That evening, they ate dinner together in the dining room. And for the first time in weeks, Catherine felt herself begin to relax. Tell me about Montana, she said as they finished their meal. What is it like up there? Cole's face softened with memory. Beautiful and brutal. The winters can kill you if you're not prepared, but the summers are like nowhere else on earth. I ran horses on the high plains, selling to the army and to ranchers, built up a good business over 8 years. Why did you leave? Thomas asked. He had been quiet most of the meal, but Catherine could see he was warming to Cole. I was ready for a change, Cole said. Montana's getting more settled, more civilized. I wanted to be somewhere with more space, more opportunity. Texas seemed like the right choice. He glanced at Catherine. Now I am thinking fate might have had a hand in bringing me here. Catherine felt her cheeks warm, and she looked down at her plate. She had been so focused on her desperate situation that she had not allowed herself to truly see Cole Winters as a man. But now, sitting across from him in the lamplight, she could not help but notice the strength in his features, the kindness in his eyes, the way his voice made her feel safe. 2 days later, Garrett came to town. Catherine was helping Mrs. Patterson with the baking when she heard the commotion outside. She went to the window and saw Garrett and 6 of his men riding down Main Street toward the land office where Cole was filing his new deeds. "Stay here," Catherine told Thomas, but she could not follow her own advice. She grabbed her shawl and hurried outside, following at a safe distance. By the time she reached the land office, Garrett was already shouting, "You think you can come into my territory and carve up my operation? You have made a big mistake, Winters." Cole stood on the boardwalk, completely calm. "I have not touched your operation, Garrett. I have simply purchased land that was for sale. It is a free country." "You bought those parcels to spite me," Garrett snarled, "to try to force my hand." "I bought them because they were good investments," Cole said. "If their location happens to inconvenience you, well, that is unfortunate. Of course, I would be willing to sell them to you for the right price." Garrett's face turned purple with rage. "How much?" $20,000, Cole said. "And you release all claims on the Morgan Ranch and on Miss Morgan herself. The debt is forgiven. The marriage contract is void." "That is nearly twice what you paid for them," Garrett shouted. "That is my price," Cole said. "Take it or leave it. Otherwise, I'm quite happy to develop the properties myself. That parcel with the water access would make a fine place for a homestead, I think." Garrett stepped forward, his hand moving toward his gun, but Cole did not flinch. "You pull that weapon," Cole said quietly, "and you will hang. There are 24 witnesses watching right now." Catherine looked around and realized he was right. Half the town had gathered to watch the confrontation, including the sheriff, who stood nearby with his hand on his own gun. Garrett seemed to realize the same thing. He slowly moved his hand away from his weapon. "You will regret this, Winters. I promise you that." "Is that a threat?" the sheriff called out. "Because I am standing right here, Garrett?" Garrett shot the lawman a furious look but said nothing more. He turned on his heel and stalked back to his horse. "You have 3 days, Winters," he called over his shoulder. "Then I am taking what I want, one way or another." After Garrett and his men rode off, Catherine rushed to Cole. "He is going to try to hurt you." "Probably," Cole agreed, "but he is also going to realize that I hold all the cards. His ranch is worth a lot less without those parcels, and every day he waits, he loses money and standing. Pride will make him resist, but practicality will win out." "You sound very certain of that," Catherine said. "I am," Cole said. He smiled at her. "Trust me." That night, Catherine could not sleep. She kept thinking about Cole, alone in his room, possibly in danger because of her. Finally, near midnight, she wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and knocked softly on his door. Cole opened it immediately, still fully dressed. "Is something wrong?" "I needed to see that you were all right," Catherine admitted. "I keep thinking about what Garrett might do." Cole stepped back, inviting her in. It was improper being alone with him in his room, but Catherine no longer cared about propriety. Too much had happened, and the old rules seemed meaningless now. "I am fine," Cole assured her. "I have my rifle close, and I'm a light sleeper. Garrett will not catch me unaware." Catherine sat in the room's single chair, and Cole leaned against the window frame, watching the street below. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything." "Are you doing all this because you feel sorry for me? Because if you are, I need to know. I cannot bear to be someone's charity case." Cole turned to look at her, and the moonlight streaming through the window cast his face in silver and shadow. "I am not doing this out of pity, Catherine. It was the first time he had used her given name, and the sound of it on his lips made her heart skip. "Then why?" she asked. He crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair so they were eye to eye. "Because from the moment I met you, I could not stop thinking about you, because you are brave and smart and strong, and you deserve a life where you are free to choose your own path. Because when I think about Garrett putting his hands on you, I feel a rage I have never known before." He reached out and gently took her hand. "And because I'm falling in love with you, and I'm hoping that maybe when all this is over, you might give me a chance to court you properly." Catherine's breath caught. "Cole, I do not have anything to offer you. Once you settle my debt, I will have nothing but the clothes on my back." "You have yourself," Cole said simply. "That is more than enough for me." She looked into his eyes and saw only sincerity. This good, honorable man was offering her everything she had thought was lost to her forever: freedom, choice, love. "You barely know me," she whispered. "Then let me get to know you," Cole said. "Let me prove to you that I am serious about this, about us." Catherine felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they were not tears of despair anymore. They were tears of hope, of overwhelming gratitude, of something that felt dangerously like joy. "I think I might be falling in love with you too," she admitted. Cole smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "Then we will figure out the rest together." He stood and helped her to her feet, then walked her back to her room like a gentleman. At her door, he lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Sleep well, Catherine. Tomorrow, we end this." But tomorrow brought news that changed everything. Cole went to check on his newly purchased properties and found that Garrett's men had been there during the night. They had driven off the cattle, burned down the small cabin on one parcel, and destroyed the windmill that fed the water source on another. "He's trying to make the land worthless," Cole said grimly when he returned to town. His face was tight with anger. "He knows I cannot use the damage as leverage if the properties are destroyed." "What will you do?" Catherine asked, fear rising in her throat. "I'm going to ride out to his ranch and end this one way or another," Cole said. He checked his rifle and his pistol. "I want you to stay here with Thomas and the sheriff." "No," Catherine said. "If you are going to confront Garrett, I am coming with you. This is my fight too." "Catherine, it is too dangerous." "I do not care," she said firmly. "I am tired of being something for men to bargain over. I need to face Garrett myself and tell him I am not his property." Cole looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Catherine's expression stopped him. "All right," he said finally, "but you stay behind me, and if shooting starts, you hit the ground. Promise me." "I promise." They rode out to the Triple G Ranch together, with Thomas and the sheriff following behind. The ranch was impressive, Catherine had to admit. Garrett's house was large and well-built, surrounded by extensive corrals and outbuildings, but there was something cold about it, something that spoke of ambition without warmth. Garrett met them on the porch, his arms crossed over his chest. "I should have known you would come crawling back, Winters. Ready to accept my terms?" "No," Cole said, dismounting. "I am here to give you one last chance to do the right thing. Sell me your land for a fair price and cancel Catherine's debt. If you do not, I will make sure every rancher and businessman in this territory knows what kind of man you are. I will tell them how you manipulate desperate people, how you destroy property that does not belong to you, how you essentially tried to buy a woman like she was livestock." "You think anyone will care?" Garrett laughed. "I am the richest man in the county. I employ half the people in Redemption. They will not turn on me for the likes of you." "Maybe not," Catherine said, stepping forward, "but I will make sure everyone knows what you did to your wives. I have been asking questions. Mr. Garrett, I found the doctor who treated your first wife before she died. He told me about the bruises, the broken bones. I found the maid who worked in your house when your second wife fell down those stairs. She saw you push her." Garrett's face went white, then red with fury. "You are lying." "No, I am not," Catherine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And they are both willing to testify if I press charges. The law may not care much about how a man treats his wife, but people care about murder. You will lose everything, your reputation, your standing, possibly your freedom." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Garrett slowly uncrossed his arms. "What do you want?" "I told you," Cole said. "Sell me your land for $20,000 and we all walk away. You will have enough money to start over somewhere else, maybe somewhere your reputation has not caught up with you yet." Garrett's eyes burned with hatred, but Catherine could see the calculation behind them. He was weighing his options, his pride against his future. Finally, he nodded once, sharply. "Fine. Draw up the papers." The transaction was completed in town 2 days later, with the sheriff and a lawyer as witnesses. Garrett signed over his land to Cole for $20,000, and he canceled the debt and the marriage contract with Catherine. He left Redemption that same day, heading west toward California, and Catherine felt as though a weight had been lifted from her soul. But now a new question arose. Catherine and Thomas still owned their family ranch, but they had no money to run it. Cole owned the surrounding land, including the parcels he had used to pressure Garrett. The logical solution was obvious, but Catherine was not sure she could ask for it. Cole solved the problem for her? He came to the ranch 3 days after Garrett left, carrying papers and a proposition. "I have been thinking about our situation," he said as they sat on the porch. Thomas had ridden into town for supplies, so they were alone. "As have I," Catherine said. "I own a lot of land now," Cole said. "Too much for one man to manage alone. I need partners, people I can trust." He handed her the papers. "I am proposing that we combine our properties into a single ranch. You and Thomas would own 30%. I would own 70%. We would share the profits proportionally, and you would both have full say in how the ranch is run." Catherine looked at the papers, hardly believing what she was reading. "Cole, this is too generous. You're giving us far more than our land is worth." "I am giving you what is fair," Cole said. "You and Thomas know this land. You have the relationships with the other ranchers, the connections in town. I need that knowledge and those connections. Besides," he added with a smile, "I have another proposition as well." "What is that?" He took her hand, his thumb stroking gently across her knuckles. "I would like to court you properly. I want to take you to church socials and town dances. I want to bring you flowers and make you laugh. And when enough time has passed that you are sure of your feelings, I want to ask you to marry me. Not for land, not for convenience, but because I love you and I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Catherine felt tears spring to her eyes. "You are the most remarkable man I have ever met." "Is that a yes?" Cole asked. "That is a yes to everything," Catherine said, and she leaned forward and kissed him. It was her first real kiss, and it was everything she had hoped for. Cole's lips were warm and gentle, and he held her as though she was precious, something to be treasured. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "We should probably wait until after supper to tell Thomas," Catherine said. "Probably," Cole agreed, "though I suspect he already knows. Your brother is a smart young man." Over the following months, Cole and Catherine built their ranch into something remarkable. They combined their herds, repaired the damaged properties, and hired good men to help with the work. Thomas thrived under Cole's mentorship, learning about cattle and horses and land management. The ranch, which they named the Double C for Catherine and Cole, became known throughout the territory for its quality livestock and fair dealing. Cole courted Catherine with all the patience and romance she could have hoped for. He brought her wildflowers from the range and took her riding through the hills. They attended church together every Sunday, and they danced together at the harvest social, turning heads as the handsomest couple in Redemption. 6 months after Garrett left, on a warm April evening in 1883, Cole asked Catherine to marry him officially. They were sitting by Redemption Creek, watching the sun set over the water, when he pulled a small box from his pocket. "I know we already talked about this," he said, "but I wanted to do it right." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. "Catherine Morgan, you are the strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever known. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Catherine said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in June, in the small church in Redemption. Catherine wore a dress of ivory silk that Mrs. Patterson helped her sew, and Cole wore a new suit that made him look impossibly handsome. Thomas stood up as Cole's best man, proud and happy for his sister. Half the town attended, and the celebration lasted well into the night. That evening, as they stood on the porch of their newly built ranch house, looking out over the land that was now truly theirs, Cole wrapped his arms around Catherine from behind. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Catherine said, leaning back against him. "I keep thinking about that day I walked into the boarding house, so desperate and afraid. I never imagined it would lead to this." "I knew," Cole said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "The moment I saw you, I knew my life had just changed forever." The first year of their marriage was full of hard work and deep joy. Catherine threw herself into managing the ranch's accounts and building relationships with buyers in San Antonio and Dallas. Cole focused on expanding their horse breeding program, bringing in quality stock from Montana and breaking them with patience and skill. Thomas grew into his role as foreman, earning the respect of the ranch hands with his fair dealing and hard work. In the spring of 1884, Catherine discovered she was pregnant. She told Cole one morning as they watched the sunrise from their bedroom window, and his joy was so pure and complete that it brought tears to her eyes. He insisted on doing all the heavy work himself, though Catherine pointed out that she was not fragile. "I know you are not fragile," Cole said, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "But you are carrying something precious, and I intend to take care of both of you." Their son was born in January of 1885, during a rare Texas snowstorm. Cole paced the hallway outside their bedroom while Mrs. Patterson and the doctor attended to Catherine. When he finally heard the baby's cry, he burst through the door, not caring about propriety. Catherine, exhausted but radiant, held their son against her chest. "Meet James Winters," she said softly. Cole sat on the edge of the bed, touching the baby's tiny hand with wonder. "He is perfect," he whispered, "just like his mother." As James grew, the ranch continued to prosper. Word of the Double C's quality spread, and they began selling horses to ranchers as far away as Kansas and Colorado. Cole and Catherine reinvested their profits into the land, buying additional water rights and improving their pastures. They hired more men, built new barns and corrals, and became one of the most successful operations in northern Texas. Thomas married in 1886, wedding the daughter of a neighboring rancher. Cole and Catherine gave him a portion of land to build his own house, and he remained a vital part of the Double C's operation. His wife, Sarah, became Catherine's closest friend, and the two families were constantly in and out of each other's homes. In 1887, Catherine gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Grace. She had Cole's blue eyes and Catherine's dark hair, and she was adored by everyone on the ranch. James, now 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister and insisted on helping with everything from feeding to diaper changes. One evening, when Grace was 6 months old, Catherine and Cole sat on their porch watching the sunset. James was playing with his wooden horses in the yard, and Grace was asleep in Catherine's arms. It was a moment of perfect peace, and Catherine found herself thinking about how far she had come. "Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if Garrett had succeeded?" Cole asked, as though reading her mind. "Sometimes," Catherine admitted, "but not often. That life feels like it belonged to a different person, someone I used to be." "You are still the same brave woman who walked into that boarding house," Cole said. "No," Catherine said thoughtfully. "I am braver now. Back then I was acting out of desperation. Now I know what I'm capable of. I know that I can build a life worth living, that I can face any challenge with you beside me." Cole took her free hand and kissed it. "We have built something remarkable here." "Yes, we have," Catherine agreed. She looked around at their land, their home, their family, "and we are going to keep building it together for the rest of our lives." The years rolled on, full and rich. The Double C became legendary in Texas ranching circles, known not just for its quality livestock, but for the way it treated its employees and the integrity of its owners. Cole and Catherine added 2 more children to their family, another son in 1889 and another daughter in 1891. Their house was always full of noise and laughter, of children running and horses neighing and life being lived to its fullest. Thomas and Sarah had 4 children of their own, and the cousins grew up together learning to ride and rope and manage the land that would one day be theirs. Catherine often thought about her father and wished he could see what they had created, how his legacy had not just survived but thrived. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1893, Cole surprised Catherine with a trip to San Antonio. They stayed in a fine hotel and dined in elegant restaurants, and Cole bought her a beautiful emerald necklace that matched her eyes. But the best part was simply being together, walking the river walk hand in hand, talking and laughing like they had all the time in the world. "Do you have any regrets?" Cole asked her one night as they stood on the hotel balcony looking out at the city lights. "Not a single one," Catherine said firmly. "Everything I have been through, every hardship and fear led me to you. I would not change any of it." Cole pulled her close, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I used to think I came to Texas for land and opportunity," he said, "but I know now I came here for you. Everything else was just fate clearing the path." "Then thank God for fate," Catherine murmured. They returned to the ranch to find their children had decorated the house with flowers and banners welcoming them home. James, now 8, had organized his younger siblings into preparing a special dinner. It was a chaotic, imperfect meal, but it was filled with so much love that Catherine cried happy tears. That night, after all the children were in bed, Catherine and Cole walked out to their favorite spot by the creek. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water, and the air was warm with the promise of summer. "I love you," Catherine said, turning to face her husband. "I love you more than I can ever put into words. You saved me, Cole, but more than that, you showed me how to save myself. You gave me back my freedom, and then you stood beside me while I figured out what to do with it." "You never needed saving," Cole said, cupping her face in his hands. "You just needed someone to see your strength and give you the chance to use it. I am the lucky one, Catherine. Every day I wake up next to you is a gift I do not take for granted." He kissed her then, soft and deep, a kiss that held 10 years of love and partnership and unshakable devotion. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "Come on," Catherine said, taking his hand. "Let us go home." They walked back to the house together, their fingers intertwined, their steps perfectly matched. Behind them, the creek flowed on, constant and eternal, just like the love they had built in the wild heart of Texas. The ranch spread out around them, thousands of acres of land they had fought for and won, not through violence or cruelty, but through courage and determination and the simple belief that love was always worth fighting for. Inside the house, their children slept safely in their beds, dreaming their own dreams of the future. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, as every day did, but Catherine and Cole would face them together, as they had faced everything since that desperate morning when she had walked into a boarding house looking for a miracle and found instead a partner, a love, and a life beyond her wildest imaginings. The Double C would continue to grow and prosper for generations, a testament to what 2 people could build when they refused to accept defeat. Catherine's children would grow up strong and capable, raised with the values of hard work, integrity, and compassion that their parents embodied. They would tell their own children the story of how their grandmother had been promised to a cruel man for land, and how their grandfather had said he would buy every acre to free her now. It would become family legend, a tale of courage and love that would inspire the Winters family for 100 years. But that night, none of that mattered. All that mattered was that Catherine and Cole were home, together, surrounded by the life they had built with their own hands and their own hearts. They had started with nothing but courage and hope, and they had created something beautiful and lasting. They had proven that love could triumph over greed, that kindness could defeat cruelty, and that two people who believed in each other could overcome any obstacle. As Catherine climbed into bed beside her husband, she offered up a silent prayer of gratitude for the twists of fate that had brought them together. She had been promised to a cruel man for land, but instead she had found a good man who valued her freedom more than any acreage. She had expected to lose everything, but instead she had gained more than she had ever dreamed possible. Cole wrapped his arms around her, and Catherine settled against him with a sigh of pure contentment. Outside, the Texas night sang with crickets and coyotes, the eternal music of the range. Inside, all was warm and safe and right. "I love you," Cole whispered into her hair. "I love you too," Catherine whispered back. "Forever." And in the years that followed, through all the joys and sorrows that life brought, that love remained constant. They aged together gracefully, watching their children grow and have children of their own. They expanded the ranch until it was one of the largest in Texas, but they never lost sight of what truly mattered. Money and land were important, but they were nothing compared to family, to partnership, to the deep, abiding love between two people who had chosen each other freely. When Cole finally passed away in 1925 at the age of 70, Catherine was beside him, holding his hand just as she had held it for 42 years of marriage. His last words to her were simple: "Thank you for saying yes." Catherine lived another 5 years, long enough to see the ranch transition smoothly to James's management, long enough to meet several of her great-grandchildren. She spent her final years sitting on the porch of the house Cole had built for her, watching the sun set over the land they had fought for together. When her time came, she went peacefully, with a smile on her face, and her children and grandchildren gathered around her. They buried her next to Cole on a hill overlooking Redemption Creek, with a simple stone that read, "Catherine Winters, 1860 to 1930, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She was promised to cruelty but chose love instead." The Double C Ranch continued for generations, always in the Winters family, always run with the values Catherine and Cole had established. And every child born into that family learned the story of their remarkable great-great-grandparents, the woman who refused to give up and the man who loved her enough to risk everything for her freedom. It became more than just a family story. It became a reminder that courage and love could change the course of history, that one person's refusal to accept injustice could ripple out through time, creating waves of positive change that touched countless lives. The Wild West was a hard place, full of danger and difficulty, but it was also a place where people could reinvent themselves, where love could bloom in the most unlikely circumstances, where two strangers could meet and build a legacy that would last forever. Catherine and Cole's story was one of thousands of such stories, but it was uniquely theirs, marked by their particular courage, their specific choices, their individual love. And though the West eventually became less wild, though the open range gave way to fenced pastures and the frontier became settled land, the story remained. It was told around campfires and dinner tables, passed down through generations as a testament to what was possible when two people truly believed in each other. It was a story of freedom and choice, of love triumphing over greed, of a woman who refused to be property, and a man who saw her worth. In the end, that was the legacy Catherine and Cole left behind. Not just a successful ranch or a large family, though those things mattered too, but the knowledge that love, real love, could move mountains and buy freedom and build something that would outlast any one lifetime. They had proven that one person's courage could change another person's life, that kindness was stronger than cruelty, that hope was more powerful than despair. Their story ended as all stories must, with death and the passage of time. But the love they shared, the life they built, the values they passed down through their children and their children's children, those things were eternal. Those things could never be taken away or destroyed. They were woven into the fabric of the Double C Ranch, into the land itself, into the very air that blew across the Texas plains. And so, though Catherine and Cole were gone, they were never truly absent. They lived on in every sunrise over Redemption Creek, in every horse that ran free across the pastures, in every decision made with integrity, and every act of kindness shown to a stranger. They lived on in the stories told by firelight, in the values held dear by their descendants, in the simple truth that love was always, always worth fighting for. That was their gift to the world. That was the true meaning of their story. Not that a cowboy had bought land to free a woman, though that was remarkable enough, but that two people had looked at each other and seen possibility, had chosen each other freely and completely, had built a life based on mutual respect and deep affection and unwavering partnership. They had shown that it was possible to overcome any obstacle if you had someone beside you who believed in you, who saw your worth, who loved you without reservation. And that lesson, that simple, profound truth, was their real legacy. It was what made their story worth telling, worth remembering, worth passing down through the generations. It was what transformed a tale of a land deal and a broken promise into something timeless and universal. Because everyone who heard their story could see themselves in it. Everyone who learned about Catherine and Cole could imagine finding that kind of love, building that kind of life, creating that kind of legacy. The Wild West was gone, vanished into history and legend. But the love story of Catherine Morgan and Cole Winters remained, a bright, constant star in the darkness, a reminder that even in the hardest times and the harshest places, love could bloom and grow and create something beautiful that would last forever. And that was a truth worth holding on to, worth believing in, worth fighting for, no matter what century you lived in or what challenges you faced. Their story had ended, but its impact was eternal. And that was the greatest gift two people could leave behind.